Welcome random YouTube people to my workshop. In this video, I'm going to show you how to go from one outlet to 3 outlets. So you can power all of your tools and equipment or whatever you need without having to have a clunky power strip in the way. Be sure to stay tuned because this is going to be a bodacious video. Subscribe. This is going to be my future workbench area, and I don't want a lot of cords in the way. I want to add another outlet down below so that if I have a power strip behind whatever workbench I decide, that the power cord that plugs in will be out of the way and it won't come down from here and then go to the power strip. I will have this little outlet empty or open, but I also am thinking I want to add another outlet up here in case I want to hang a light right here. That light could plug into the outlet on the back wall up here and still not take up a space in that outlet. The first step, of course, is to go turn the power off for this. I'm hoping that the outlets are on a different line than the lights because I need light, but we'll find out quick. So you have garage power there and we have garage lights here. So I'm guessing the garage power, the thing I'm gonna need to do is go fast because my refrigerator, or my freezer outside is plugged into those lights as well. So let's go see if that flips it. At garage 11, which is right here, it's a 20 amp breaker, which means we need 12 gauge wire. Well, the lights are on, but the freezer is off. So that's the switch I need. Let's go see if it plugs into power. Yep, nothing. So that's the switch we need to turn off. So because this outlet is on a 20 amp breaker, I needed to get 12 gauge wire because 14 gauge wire will not work on a 20 amp breaker. So here's my 12 gauge wire. It's 12 by 3. We only need a 12 by 2 in this case. We just need a white, black, and a ground. But because the 12 by 3 was cheaper, I decided to get it, and I'm just not going to use the third wire, but keep it just in case I do need it in the future. But we do not need a 12 by 3 for this project, just a 12 by 2. So that I have to do hardly any opening of the walls, I'm going to keep the outlets in line vertically with the other outlet. So I'm going to just measure where to put them. Because I'm going to install a pegboard, I'm going to hold up this 1 by 2 piece of wood that's going to be the frame for the pegboard so that I can make sure that the outlet I put in goes beyond that piece of wood so that I don't run into issues of the wood covering up the outlet or anything like that. The second outlet or the third outlet overall is going to go below the workbench area so I can power things from below as well as things from above. So one below and one above. Off screen, I went around to all the other outlets in the garage that were at that knee or shin level, and I made sure I grabbed the height of that so that this lower outlet will be on that exact same height so it matches the entire rest of the garage. In my case, the outlet is actually on the left side of the stud. You can see where the tape is where the stud is, but I'm just checking with my finger to hear the sound to make sure that it's hollow, or I'm going to start cutting through the drywall. Now I'm going to take the wall faceplate off of the outlet so I can see where the gang box is. I'm going to take a measurement and draw with my level a straight line from the right side of the gang box down because the right side is where the stud is. This is so that I know where I need to cut my line through the drywall is going to match the outlet above. Now I'm going to use the level to draw a straight horizontal line where I had marked the wall earlier to indicate where the height of the outlet should be. Now I'm holding up my new single gang box so I know where to trace around it, and so I know exactly where to cut my holes in through the drywall so this will fit nice and snug. Taking a look at this single gang box that I've purchased is really a DIY's best friend. These flaps on the front hold it to the drywall on the front, and then this flap in the back will flip up like this when you tighten down the screw. That flap in the back will pinch the drywall from the other side, so the front flaps and the back flaps will hold this to the wall on the drywall. It's really fun, really easy, and I've used this so many times on so many different projects. Now I'm just starting these cuts with my little razor knife or box cutter just so that I can get some nice straight lines through the drywall's surface. And then I'm going to go back through with my multi-tool and I'm going to saw this drywall out. It's going to make it a much faster process than trying to cut this thing out with just my razor knife. But if that's all you have, then go for it. Now with my multi-tool, I'm going really slow and I'm not trying to push too hard because I don't want this to fly through the wall and accidentally cut something behind there if there happened to be something behind there. Go slow. Now that I'm mostly through the drywall, I'm just gonna knock on this with my hand and look, it just falls right off. And you can see there's really not much behind it. I'm just gonna take the multi-tool and kind of clean up the edges a little bit so this is a nice perfect square. Just doing a little dry fitting, and you can see it's not quite fitting, so I'm just gonna hit it back with the multi-tool again until we have a nice dry fit of this gang box in the drywall. Dry fit looks great. Now we're gonna pop this off the wall so we can start running some of the wires. Now the wires that I just purchased are going to attach to this existing outlet. So I'm going to take these screws off so I can pull it out of the gang box and examine the wires. I'm also going to test with a multimeter tool. Now that all the wires are exposed, let's talk about the wires themselves for a minute. The black wires always go to the gold screws. The white wires or the neutral wires always go to the silver screws on the other side of the outlet. And the ground wires, which are either copper or green, will go on the green terminal, which has a green screw. Now it looks like this particular outlet was wired in what's called a direct connect fashion, where the hot wires from the breaker come into the top of the outlet, the top black and the top white, and then the bottom black and the bottom white go to the next outlet in the series. But what you'll find is that's not always the case, especially with existing construction. Sometimes the hot is ran into the bottom, sometimes it's ran into the top. Technically speaking, on modern non-GFCI outlets, it doesn't really matter, but you're gonna have to use your multimeter to figure out which one is which. Often the hot goes into the top and the neutral going out to the next terminal is on the bottom. There's also another wiring method called pigtailing, where you would combine all of the black wires into one wire nut, all of the whites into their own wire nut, and then the grounds would be wired together as well. And then once they're wired together, you send off a separate line from the black into the outlet and a separate white into the outlet, so that this one particular outlet is pigtailed. We could half pigtail it, where we only pigtail off the hot line to go to the new outlets and leave the neutral lines, if you will, just keep it the way it is going to the next outlets in the series, so that we don't disrupt anything that's already working. So there's benefits to both ways, but more than likely pigtailing everything would probably be the best way to go. But before we proceed, let's just go ahead and double check with the voltage detector to make sure that the power is indeed off to this outlet. Well, it's a good thing that we are testing with this voltage detector. I had forgotten that overnight I turned the breaker back on so that the items in the freezer wouldn't melt. But now that we're working on it again, we really need to make sure we turn that back off. I would highly recommend that you get one of these voltage detectors so that you can be safe and remain unelectrocuted. Now that the breaker is back off, we can pull the outlet out of the way and start to open up these little tabs at the bottom of this box so we can start to fish our wire down to the hole that we just cut for the new outlet. Just grabbing my large flathead screwdriver so I can start prying open those tabs at the bottom of this gang box. So what I've found is that it's kind of hard to push wires out of these gang boxes. They're designed to have water come into them and not be pulled out of the other side. So I'm having trouble pushing the wire through. So I'm going to actually go and grab my fish tape so I can send a line down and then pull the wires back up into the box instead. So let's do that. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know that I just love this fish tape. I've used it so many times. This is about a 40-foot spool, and what it is a really nice, thick, hard wire that you can push through the walls, and then you're going to push it through the outlet, and then once it's popping out the other side, we're going to tape our wires on and pull them back up through using this fish tape. Really handy. I love this stuff. I've used it so many times. I'd highly recommend getting some. Now that we've ran our fish tape through the existing outlet into the hole where our new outlet's going to be, at this point we're going to tape with electrical tape the new wire onto the other end of this fish tape and then pull it right back through up into the existing gang box. Now that I have the wire coming into my existing gang box, I can just cut off the electrical tape off the fish tape and then I'm done. This fish tape is so cool. I love this stuff. Now I'm just going to make sure I have about 6 inches worth of wire coming into the existing gang box, and I'll do the other for the gang box below, about 6 inches so you have enough to do all of your wiring. Now we're going to repeat those exact same steps for the second new outlet we're going to add above the existing outlet. And remembering that this new outlet's going to go below the frame for the pegboard, so we need to make sure we don't have any interference that way. We're just going to cut out the rectangle out of the drywall, run our fish tape and run our wire through the holes, and do all those exact same processes until we have our third outlet ready to go. And this random YouTube people is exactly why I recommended and still recommend you go slow with your multi-tool through the drywall. Look what we found. There's 2 wires back here. One's obviously going down to the power outlet that we've been working with, and the other is the one that's going to the next outlet in this series. So I'm glad that we went slow with this and we didn't cut through the wire at all. So just be safe when you're doing this. Now that catastrophe was avoided by going slow and being safe, we're going to run our fish tape up this time from the existing outlet to this hole above, and then we're going to pull our wire back down through. And remember, we are leaving about 6 inches coming out of each outlet on each side. And now I'm going to go back through on each end of each line that we just ran and cut off the sheathing to expose the wires that are inside. And remember, at this point, I'm also going to cut off the red wire that we're not going to be using at all anymore. And before I cut the sheathing off the wires coming out of these holes, I need to remember to run them through the new gang boxes that we have. So let's do that first before we strip the wires. It'd be much easier to run into the box before. And remember, as we tighten down the screws on these cool gang boxes, it's going to pull the flap on the other side to pinch this gang box to the drywall. And what I'm doing here is just realizing how much of a moron I am. I didn't account for the height of those tabs on these gang boxes, so it's going to interfere with that piece of wood we're going to use for our pegboard. So I'm going to need to probably cut the hole a little bit bigger on the bottom side, and I'm just frustrated because I didn't think about that. So moving on for now to running the wires through the new gang box and cutting and stripping those as well. Amid my frustration with myself about the gang box being in the wrong place, I forgot to tilt the camera up to film me fixing that. So this is what it looks like now. So you can see I cut the hole a little wider at the bottom so I could pull the outlet down so it's beyond that line that I need for my pegboard. So there's a little gaping hole above there, but the faceplate for the outlet should cover that. But I might go back through and fill it with some kind of expanding foam or something. But I went also and I stripped the wires and gave it a little curl so that they can fit around the new outlets. I did that all off camera because I was an idiot and forgot to show this on camera. And now it's time to wire up my first new outlet. I'm going to start by connecting the ground to the ground terminal. You can see I have the hook of my wire going clockwise around the terminal screw. That's so that when I spin it righty-tighty, I'm actually tightening the wire down with my spin instead of loosening it. So make sure it's going in a clockwise direction around the nut. And then I've chosen to do the bottom terminals on this particular outlet for my white and my black. So in this case, I only have one wire coming into this outlet on each of my brand new outlets. And then I'm going to wire up everything here in just a minute. Same exact thing here for our bottom new outlet. Please tighten down all screws even if it doesn't have a wire going into it. Now you may be wondering, we're on a 20 amp circuit. Can you use a 15 amp outlet? And the short answer is yes, as long as you have more than one. You cannot have a single 15 amp outlet on a 20 amp circuit. You need to have a double outlet like the one that we're using. And all of these other outlets on this entire line are already 15 amp outlets because there are more than one of them. So we are fine as long as it's not a single outlet. But again, you must use 12 gauge wire on a 20 amp breaker. With the new outlets all wired up, now it's time to wire everything up. While I was examining the wires coming into this existing outlet, I saw something that I thought was quite strange. Let me show you. If you can see the black and white coming in on the right side, the black goes to the bottom, but the white comes up to the top actually. I would have expected it to come here, but it's coming to the top. And then this is going to the other wire, and the top black here is also going to the other wire. So it's backwards from what I would have expected. Now I'll continue to show you what I did, but I'm going to first show you a better way on what I probably am going to go back and do later on. I'm talking, of course, about pigtailing. So this example is a diagram that I found online. I couldn't find a copyright information to this, so I'm just going to show it anyways. But you can see all of the neutral wires for every single line that's coming into this box are all wire netted together. Same with the ground lines and same with the hot lines. They're all wire netted together in their own respective color. Then for each of the different colors, black, white, and ground, you'll have a wire coming out to the outlet here. That's called pigtailing. We're going to pigtail off of this central collection of wires straight to the outlet. One pigtail for the black, one pigtail for the white, one pigtail for the green. And this will avoid the confusion of, well, which wire is the wire that's coming from the breaker, which wire is the wire going to the next outlet in the series. If they're all pigtailed together, the power will come into this one collective space in the nut for all wires of that same color, and then you'll send the power out to the outlet. And the power will continue on through the process on where it needs to go next. And it's much easier if you just pigtail, but I'll go ahead and continue to show you what I did, which is kind of a half pigtail solution. Let's just start with all the grounds. If you can see, all of the grounds come in and they are bundled together right here. and then this is the line that goes right into the outlet. So I need to bundle all of the ground wires together. And you can see there's this thing here that kind of connects them all together. I do have brand new one, so I'm going to try to cut that one off so I can use my new one, because it's going to have 2 more lines in it now. So let's go ahead and do that. And as feared, it's not coming off as easy as I'd hoped. It's kind of not great for DIY people using these things. Got the tab piece off. I'm going to leave that all connected together like so. Next, I need to take this ground wire off the receptacle here so I can run my new copper connector piece over the whole thing. Now making a J-hook and putting it back on the receptacle. I had previously confirmed with my voltage detector that the hot lines are going into the bottom black and the top white, so I'm going to disconnect those so I can pigtail off of them. I'm leaving the other ones connected to the outlet, and they will just continue on through the next set of outlets in the series, just like they are now. But really, I would recommend you just pull all of the wires off and do the pigtail option that we've discussed. But just showing you what I did do and that did work. Now with some of that extra wire that I had cut up earlier, when I was making sure that I had 6 inches coming out of the box, I'm going to take out one of the black wires and I'm going to use that as my pigtail wire. Just going to strip both sides off to expose the wire. One goes into the wire nut and one goes onto the black part of the outlet. Black and white pigtail wires are now connected to the outlet. Now comes the time where I'm going to combine all of the whites together and all of the blacks together, and then this will be done. You can see I have about 4 wires I need to spin together, and it's really hard to do this just by hand. I have this handy little tool that's used to combine wires together and it strips them at the same time. But since they're already stripped, I'm just going to feed them into this little tool and I'm going to spin it so that it spins them all together. I will provide a link to this tool and all other tools that I've used in this video in the video description. Go check it out and get yourself some awesome gear. See, now doesn't that just look pretty? And here comes the wire nut. It's a little bit bigger one because there's so many wires. Last is to do the same thing for the black wires. Moment of truth. Let's go flip the breaker. Push me luck. Well, there's no fire yet, so let's check it out. Let's test these and see if we get the same results. Good. What about up here? Power. So far so good. Down here. I think we might just have done it. Let's go check this other outlet. I see that the jellyfish lights are on and hot. I mean, I think we're good, guys. Whew. Let's try plugging something in. Good. 3, 2, 1. Got a green light. Of course, nothing's plugged in, that's why it's flashing red. But I mean, it seems to be working. That one's off center, but new one up here. Guys, I think we're good. That's a weight off my shoulders. Now I just need to put this back in. I'm gonna go turn the power back off because I don't want to touch any live wires and get shocked. Well, you can't tell this, but I've got about 2% battery on my phone and I've plugged it into my new outlet and it's powering my phone right now for me to make this video. So my outlets are working. Hell yeah. If you want to see more of my videos where I hang the pegboard and I also add the shop light, go ahead and check out my big full-length video about adding garage shelves. Also, subscribe so that you can get any new content that I come out with. I want to add a separate video just about the pegboard and a separate video just about the shop light. So subscribe to be able to stay tuned for those. Thank you for joining me, and remember to subscribe. subscribe. If you want to watch more of my videos, just search for my name. DIY BRY. Yeah!